Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be exploring a pretty fascinating connection today, the link between mathematics and philosophy.
Mm,
We've got this excerpt from a text that really dives into it, and
yeah,
I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation.
I think so too.
So today our goal is to kind of see how these two fields, math and philosophy, they seem so different, you know,
Right.
but they're really intertwined and have been for centuries.
Yeah, definitely.
So are you ready to have your mind blown a little bit today?
I am. I am.
Because I think this is going to be one of
Yeah.
those deep dives.
Yeah.
All right, so the source jumps right in and it starts talking about how philosophy actually lays the groundwork for all of mathematical thought. And that's surprising to me. I would think that math, with all of its numbers and,
Yeah.
formulas and things, would be pretty self-contained.
Right. It seems like it would be.
Like, why does math need philosophy?
Well, you see, I think that's a really great question. And it's easy to think that math would be self-contained. Math deals with pretty concrete things like structures and quantities and relationships. But philosophy really takes a step back and asks these big why questions. Like,
Right.
what is mathematical truth? Do numbers exist like outside of our minds? Or are they just things that humans invented?
Whoa.
And these are questions that, mathematicians grapple with, and that's where philosophy comes in.
So before we even start doing any math,
Yeah,
we got to figure out what math is.
exactly.
I'm starting to see how these fields connect.
Yeah, yeah. And the source points out some of the philosophical debates at play here, like this long-standing debate
Okay.
between Platonism and nominalism. So Platonism, named after the Greek philosopher Plato, argues that numbers exist in this perfect eternal realm. Like there's this world of pure mathematical forms that we're kind of tapping into when we do math.
So you're saying that math isn't something that we invented. It's something that we're discovering.
Yeah. That's the gist of Platonism.
Oh, wow. Okay, like archaeologists digging up
I-
ancient ruins or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like we're uncovering this pre-existing truth. But then you have nominalism, which takes a very different view.
Okay.
Nominalists say that numbers are really just names. They're labels that we've created to make sense of the world. And they would say that there's not a separate realm of mathematical forms.
Okay, so is math like a cosmic code that we're deciphering? Or is it just like a really sophisticated system
That's the question.
that we've built? I kind of have to admit, I'm leaning towards that cosmic code idea.
Yeah,
It's just a lot cooler.
it is cooler, but both perspectives have their, pros and cons. And it's this kind of questioning that pushes both math and philosophy forward.
Okay.
And to grapple with these questions, philosophers have developed some pretty powerful tools.
I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
All right, so think of it as a philosopher's toolbox. So there's logic, which provides the framework for reasoning in mathematics. And then there's epistemology, which explores how we know things, how we acquire knowledge. And in the context of math, epistemology asks whether mathematical truths are discovered or invented.
So epistemology is like investigating the
Yeah.
very foundation
Yeah,
of mathematical knowledge.
it is. Yeah.
Okay, I can see why that's important.
Absolutely. And then there's ontology, which deals with the nature of being. When it's applied to math, ontology tackles the question of whether mathematical objects have an independent existence or if they're just constructs of the human mind.
So with ontology, we're asking, do
Yeah.
numbers really exist?
Right.
That sounds like a question like a 5-year-old would ask.
It does, but it's actually a really profound philosophical problem.
Yeah, it is. Wow.
And these seemingly simple questions can lead to some really complex and nuanced philosophical investigations. And what's remarkable is that all of these philosophical tools are directly applicable to mathematics, and they really shape how we understand and approach the subject.
This is making me rethink my whole relationship with math.
Yeah.
It's not just about
Yeah.
memorizing formulas anymore. It's
Yeah.
about grappling with these
Right.
deep philosophical questions.
Exactly.
Speaking of tools, our source specifically highlights logic
Yes.
as being like a crucial bridge between math and philosophy. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, so logic, in essence,
Mhm.
is the language of reason. It's the set of rules that govern valid arguments and deductions. It's what allows us to move from premises to conclusions in a way that's clear and consistent and avoids contradictions.
So logic is like the rule book
Exactly.
for both math and philosophy and make sure that our thinking is sound
Yeah,
and it all makes sense.
exactly. Both mathematicians and philosophers
Right.
rely on logic to build their arguments
Hmm.
and explore the validity of their claims. And this connection goes way back. Aristotle, for example, was a major figure in developing the foundations of logic, particularly what's called syllogistic logic.
So even ancient philosophers were laying the groundwork for
Abs-
how we think about logic today.
Yes, and those foundations were built upon by later thinkers. Figures like Froude Russell and Gödel were instrumental in developing what we now call mathematical logic.
Oh, wow. So even in the world of logic, there's like rock stars.
There are.
You mentioned formal systems, and that reminds me of something else that caught my eye in the source.
Okay.
Set theory. What's so special about set theory?
Set theory. It's a really fascinating area where math and philosophy really collide. Developed by George Cantor, set theory deals with collections of objects or sets. These objects can be anything you can imagine, numbers, shapes, even ideas. But what makes set theory so groundbreaking is that it provides a language for talking about infinity in a really precise and rigorous way.
Infinity, like forever and ever?
Yeah.
How can you even begin to wrap your head around that mathematically?
Well, that's the beauty of it. Cantor showed that there are different sizes of infinity, which was a radical concept at the time.
What are you talking about?
And this led to all sorts of fascinating debates about the nature of infinity, paradoxes, and even the foundations of mathematics itself.
Wait. Different sizes of infinity. There's more than one kind of forever. I'm officially mind blown.
It's a concept that it challenges our intuition, but it's a perfect example of how math can push the boundaries of human thought, lead us to question our assumptions, and explore new ways of understanding the universe. And those explorations lead us right into philosophy.
So set theory is where the rubber really hits the road,
Yeah.
where math starts forcing us
Yeah.
to think about these big philosophical questions.
Exactly. And what's even more fascinating is that there are all these different philosophical lenses through which we can view mathematics, each with its own perspective on what math is and how it works.
I'm definitely ready to hear about these different perspectives.
Okay.
Hit me with them.
All right. So let's dive into these different viewpoints. We've already talked about Platonism a bit, that idea that mathematical objects exist in a perfect eternal realm. But another perspective is formalism, championed by David Hilbert. Formalists view mathematics as like a system of rules and symbols, kind of like a game with very specific guidelines.
So instead of searching for some hidden truth, it's more about making sure the rules of the game are followed.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So it kind of shifts the focus from what mathematical statements might mean to whether they're consistent within the system itself.
Okay.
So formalists are really asking, does the system hold up? Do the rules work without any contradictions?
Right.
And that's what determines the validity of a mathematical statement.
So it seems like formalism really brings the focus back to the human-created system of math.
Right. It's not about discovering some external truth. It's about the internal consistency of the system.
Makes sense.
The source also mentions constructivism. What's that all about?
Constructivism. I'm curious about that one.
So constructivism takes a very different approach. The main figure associated with this view is L.E.J. Brouwer, and he argued that mathematics is really about what we can explicitly construct using our minds.
Okay, so instead of discovering mathematical truths out there in the universe, constructivists think we're building them ourselves.
Exactly. It's a much more, grounded, human-centered perspective.
Okay, so constructivists would say that math is all about what we can demonstrate and create.
Yeah, and because our minds are finite, constructivists have a unique perspective on infinity. They would argue that we can't truly grasp the infinite because our mental processes are limited.
That's really interesting. It seems like constructivism brings math back down to earth a bit.
It does, It's about what we can actually comprehend and create.
That's a good summary.
Yeah, it challenges that notion that math is about this pre-existing truth. It's about what we can demonstrably create using finite steps and logic.
I'm really loving this whole conversation about all these different schools of thought within mathematics.
Yeah, it's not just this monolithic thing.
It's
a rich tapestry of ideas.
Okay, so we've talked about Platonism, formalism, and constructivism. And the source mentions one other perspective, intuitionism.
Yes. Intuitionism.
How does that one fit in?
So intuitionism is closely related to constructivism.
Okay.
But it really emphasizes the role of human intuition in mathematics.
Intuition. That sounds almost artistic.
Yeah.
Like we just have a feeling about what's right mathematically.
In a way, yes. Intuitionists believe that there's a certain level of immediate understanding, a direct grasp of mathematical concepts that goes beyond formal proofs. And some even argue that there's a sense of beauty and elegance that guides us in mathematics.
Now, that's an idea that I can really get behind. It makes math seem less intimidating.
Right, and more human.
Okay, so this whole conversation
Yeah.
keeps coming back to a question that you raised earlier. Is mathematics itself a form of philosophy?
It is a compelling question. And the source argues that. There's a strong case to be made. For this view,
Okay.
the depth of abstract reasoning, the fundamental questions about truth and existence that come up in mathematics. These are all core concerns of philosophy.
And the source actually backs up this claim with some really cool examples.
It does. Yeah.
So what are some of those examples?
Well, one example that jumps out is the concept of infinity. We've already talked a bit about how set theory lets us explore different sizes of infinity.
Right.
But these explorations have ripple effects that go far beyond mathematics. It forces us to ask these philosophical questions about the nature of reality itself.
Like, what does it even mean for something to be infinite?
Exactly.
How can we even comprehend something that goes on forever?
It's a question that's plagued philosophers for centuries.
Those are the questions that keep me up at night.
Yeah.
It's like the more we learn about the universe,
Yeah.
the more mysterious it becomes.
It does. And math provides us with the
Yeah.
tools to explore these mysteries.
Okay.
Another fascinating example is the role of symmetry and order in mathematics.
So math isn't just about crunching numbers. It's about finding patterns and structures that reflect a deeper order in the universe.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
these patterns and structures often have philosophical implications. They point to this fundamental harmony and balance that many philosophers have pondered for centuries.
Okay, so we've got infinity, we've got symmetry, and order. And the source mentions another area where math and philosophy intersect. Paradoxes.
Paradoxes. Those mind-bending puzzles that seem to contradict themselves, like Zeno's paradoxes of motion.
Oh yeah, I vaguely remember Zeno's paradoxes from a philosophy class I took years ago.
Yeah, they're pretty wild.
Didn't one of them suggest that motion is impossible?
Yeah.
I always found that one particularly baffling.
They are definitely head-scratchers. But what's amazing is that these philosophical paradoxes have actually pushed mathematicians to develop new tools and refine their understanding of concepts like infinity, continuity, and limits.
So these seemingly nonsensical puzzles have actually helped to advance mathematics.
They have.
Wow.
It highlights the fact that even these abstract philosophical questions can have a real impact on the development of mathematical thought. And speaking of history, our source kind of dives into how this connection between math and philosophy has played out over the centuries.
Okay.
It focuses on some of the key figures who really embodied this fusion of disciplines.
I am ready for a history lesson.
Our,
Give me the mathematical philosophical Hall of Fame.
well, we can't talk about math and philosophy without mentioning Pythagoras.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a mathematician. He was a philosopher, a mystic, kind of an eccentric figure.
Right.
But he really believed that numbers held the key to understanding the universe, that they were like the fundamental building blocks of reality.
Yeah. I remember learning about the
Yeah.
Pythagorean theorem in school. But for Pythagoras, it wasn't just some mathematical formula.
Right. It was a reflection of a
Yeah.
deeper cosmic harmony.
Exactly.
Like
He
that.
saw numbers as more than just abstract symbols. They were like the language of the universe.
It's amazing how even thousands of years ago, people were making these connections between math and philosophy. Yeah, and that connection continued through history. The source mentions Plato, who we've already talked about with Platonism.
Right.
He believed that math was like the gateway to true knowledge, the purest form of reasoning. There's even a famous inscription at his academy that said, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter."
Wow. That's serious dedication to math.
Yeah, you couldn't just stroll into Plato's academy without knowing your angles.
Not a chance.
And then we have René Descartes, the philosopher and mathematician, who gave us the famous phrase, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am.
Right.
He wasn't just pondering the nature of existence, though. He was also making significant contributions to mathematics, developing the system of coordinate geometry that we still use today.
So Descartes was literally mapping out philosophical ideas.
Yeah.
On a mathematical grid.
You could say that.
Wow.
He's a perfect example of someone who blended math and philosophy, seeing them as two sides of the same coin.
Okay, and let's not forget about Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz.
Yes, Leibniz, another brilliant mind, who really straddled both worlds. He independently developed calculus around the same time as Isaac Newton, and he also made significant contributions to the field of logic.
Calculus and logic. That's impressive.
It is. And for Leibniz, math wasn't just a tool for solving practical problems. It was a way of uncovering the fundamental truths of the universe, a language for expressing the logic of creation.
It's so fascinating to see how these historical figures saw math and philosophy as so intertwined.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if we've lost something by separating these disciplines so much in modern times.
That's a great question, and it's one that the source addresses by bringing up Bertrand Russell, a giant in both math and philosophy. In the 20th century, he co-authored Principia Mathematica, which was a groundbreaking attempt to derive all of mathematics from basic logical
He was
sources.
trying to build the entire edifice of math on the foundation of logic.
Exactly. And at the same time, he was grappling with these major philosophical questions about language knowledge and the nature of reality.
It seems like all of these historical figures really understood that. To get the big picture, you need both math and philosophy.
I think so. They weren't separate pursuits. They were complementary ways of understanding the universe.
I think that's a really key takeaway
It is.
from this whole exploration. And you know what's even more exciting is that this ancient connection between math and philosophy is still relevant today.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe even more so with all the advances in science and technology.
Right. Let's bring it into the 21st century.
Okay. How are math and philosophy shaping our world?
Today?
Well, one of the most fascinating areas where this connection is playing out is in artificial intelligence. We're building machines that can perform incredible calculations, solve complex problems, even compose music and write poetry. But this raises a fundamental philosophical question. Can a machine truly understand math? Or is it just mimicking human thought processes?
That's a great question. It takes us back to that initial debate about what math actually is.
It does. If we don't fully understand it ourselves, can we really program a machine to get it?
Exactly.
It's a question that's pushing the boundaries of both computer science and philosophy. It's forcing us to re-examine our assumptions about intelligence, consciousness, and the nature of mathematical understanding.
It seems like the more we delve into these questions, the more complex and fascinating they become.
That's the beauty of it. And it's not just AI where these connections are emerging. Fields like quantum mechanics and relativity are also blurring the lines between mathematical models and philosophical interpretations of reality.
Quantum mechanics and relativity always make my head spin to think that they're also raising these philosophical questions about the nature of reality. That's incredible.
It's a testament to the fact that the pursuit of knowledge is never ending. As we push the boundaries of scientific understanding, we inevitably run into these profound philosophical questions that really force us to rethink our place in the cosmos.
Wow, what a journey.
It has been.
We started by exploring the philosophical foundations of math. And we talked about logic as this bridge between the two disciplines. And then we considered all these different perspectives on what math even is.
Right. Platonism, formalism, constructivism, intuitionism. It's fascinating.
And then we traveled through history. We met some of the greats in the Mathematical Philosophical Hall of Fame. And we ended up right here in the present, where this ancient connection is shaping the cutting edge of science and technology.
It really is remarkable. I think a key takeaway from all of this is that math and philosophy, while they're often seen as separate, were actually deeply interconnected.
Yeah.
They both stem from this fundamental human desire to understand the world around us, to seek patterns, to make sense of the complexity of the universe.
You've definitely given me a new appreciation for both math and philosophy.
Good. I'm glad. What are your parting thoughts for our listeners? What should they ponder as they go about their day to day? I would say this. The next time you encounter a mathematical concept, whether it's a simple equation or like a complex theory, take a moment to think about the philosophical questions that lie beneath the surface.
Okay.
Ask yourself, what does this tell me about the nature of reality? How does it shape my understanding of the universe and my place in it? I think you'll find that math becomes much more than just numbers and formulas. It becomes a window into the deepest mysteries of existence.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's a reminder that learning isn't just about acquiring facts. It's about expanding our perspective, deepening our understanding. and really
Yep.
embracing the wonder and mystery of the universe. So keep those philosophical ponderings going, and until next time, happy exploring.